For centuries, historians treated the death of civilizations as a crime scene with too many suspects. War, drought, bad leadership, bad luck. Each collapse studied in isolation. A unique tragedy with unique causes. No one thought to ask a different question. What if they all died the same way? In 2010, an evolutionary biologist named Peter Turchin proposed something radical. History isn't a collection of stories. It's a data set, and data sets have patterns. He called the new field cliodynamics, the mathematical science of history. Working with the Complexity Science Hub in Vienna, his team built the Sachat Global History Databank, the largest systematic collection of historical data ever compiled. Over 400 societies, 5,000 years. They combined it with frameworks from anthropologist Joseph Tainter and geographer Jared Diamond, decades of scholarship on why complex societies fail. Then they fed it into computational pattern recognition models, not to replace human analysis, to test it, to ask one question. Across all these civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, is there a shared signature of collapse? The answer came back clean, a synchronized curve, a 5-phase sequence that repeats across geography, culture, and time. The model didn't find a prophecy, it found a process. And according to the data, we are deep inside it. Phase 1. The boom. Every collapsing civilization in the dataset started with a breakthrough in complexity. The Akkadians mastered irrigation. Rome built roads and law. The classic Maya engineered raised field agriculture. The Khmer Empire at Angkor built the most advanced water management system in the pre-industrial world, a network of reservoirs and canals that turned floodplains into a rice-producing powerhouse. Population grows. Trade expands. The system works brilliantly. But complexity is not free, and every breakthrough carries a hidden invoice. Phase 2. The squeeze. As the society matures, the benefits of growth flow upward. Turchin calls the mechanism elite overproduction. It's not a conspiracy, it's structural. More people compete for elite positions than the system can support. In the late Roman Republic, land concentrated into vast, slave-worked estates, while free farmers were pushed into the cities, unemployed and angry. The ratio of producers to consumers inverts. Too many at the top, not enough at the bottom to hold them up. Phase 3. Strain. The invisible killer. This is the slow accumulation of ecological, fiscal, and institutional debts. In Norse Greenland, settlers stripped the scrubland to feed livestock until the soil eroded into the sea. In Angkor, the canal network grew so interdependent that a single blockage could cascade through the whole system. The margin for error drops to zero. Strain doesn't cause collapse by itself. It sets the conditions. It's the difference between a forest and a tinderbox. Both are made of trees. Only one is waiting for a spark. Phase 4. The shock. The trigger. For the Akkadians, it was the 4.2 kiloyear event, a brutal megadrought. For Rome, plague combined with sustained migration pressure. For Angkor, severe droughts that overwhelmed the strained water system. In a healthy society, a shock is a crisis that can be managed. The system bends, recovers. In a strained society, the same shock triggers a chain reaction the system cannot stop. Phase 5. The snap. Central authority fractures. Supply chains disintegrate. The scribes, engineers, and bureaucrats who kept the machine running scatter. The civilization doesn't fall like a building hit by a bomb. It simplifies, rapidly, like a computer crashing back to a command line. Tainter called it the economics of collapse, a society shedding the overhead it can no longer afford. The people remain. The complexity does not. If the pattern were absolute, if every society that entered the sequence inevitably snapped, this film would be a eulogy, but the data contains exceptions. In 1991, Cuba lost its primary trading partner overnight when the Soviet Union dissolved. 80% of imports vanished. Fuel, food, industrial supplies, gone. Caloric intake dropped by a third. In structural terms, a textbook shock hitting a society already under strain. The model predicted a snap, but Cuba bent. The country rapidly decentralized its agriculture. Industrial monoculture gave way to small organic farms and urban gardens. It was chaotic, painful, and incomplete. But the population survived the curve without state collapse. The lesson is precise. The snap requires a specific condition: rigidity. Societies that cannot or will not restructure in response to strain are the ones that break. The ones that simplify voluntarily, however imperfectly, can survive the curve by changing shape before it changes them. So where are we? When Turchin's team overlaid modern data onto the historical curve, the alignment was close enough to publish, and close enough to alarm. But first, the strongest objection. Critics, including political scientist Steven Pinker, argue that comparing us to ancient empires is fundamentally misleading. We have democratic governance, international institutions, scientific method, global communication. Extreme poverty has declined dramatically. Child mortality has plummeted. By many metrics, this is the most successful civilization in history. And they have a point. To ignore this would be dishonest. Turchin's response is precise. The relevant variable isn't technology or governance type, it's structural dynamics. And by that measure, we are tracking the pattern. The boom is undeniable. Hyperconnectivity, global supply chains crossing 30 countries before a product reaches a shelf. But like Angkor's canals, our system's strength is its vulnerability. One ship in the Suez Canal froze global trade for a week. One ransomware attack on the Colonial Pipeline shut down fuel for the U.S. East Coast. Complexity without redundancy is fragility wearing a mask. The squeeze is measurable. Wealth concentration mirrors the late Roman Republic. Turchin's elite overproduction index shows more credentialed people competing for fewer positions of power than at any point in the data set, a pattern that historically precedes civil unrest within a generation. He published this in 2010 and predicted significant instability around 2020. The strain is quantified. The Stockholm Resilience Center reports we've crossed 6 of 9 planetary boundaries that define Earth's safe operating space. The Ogallala Aquifer, irrigating 30% of American agriculture, is depleting faster than it refills. We're drilling deeper and pumping faster, which, as the Acadians could tell you, is not a solution. It's an acceleration. So here is what the model actually says, and what it does not. Turchin's model identifies the 2020s through the 2040s as a window of elevated vulnerability, not a collapse date, not a doomsday prediction. A window, a phase where the probability of cascading failures is historically high. What happens inside the window depends on decisions that haven't been made yet. But the modern world carries a risk no prior civilization faced. We have what researchers call existential multipliers. 12,500 nuclear warheads, dozens of biosafety labs handling pandemic-capable pathogens, a financial system so tightly coupled that a housing bubble in America triggered bank failures in Iceland within months. When the Acadians snapped, they lost an empire. If a modern, interconnected, nuclear-armed civilization enters an uncontrolled snap, the consequences could be, for the first time, permanent. Which is why the exceptions in the data matter more than the rule. We have climate models that project consequences decades out, agricultural science that could feed 10 billion sustainably, communication technology that could coordinate collective action faster than any prior civilization could imagine. The Maya had astronomical knowledge that could have optimized agriculture for centuries. They used it to schedule wars. The Romans had engineering unmatched for 1,000 years. They built arenas for blood sport while their frontiers crumbled. Knowledge doesn't automatically become wisdom. Capability doesn't automatically become action. Turchin argues the highest leverage intervention is reducing elite overproduction and wealth concentration, releasing pressure before the system blows. Tainter argues for deliberate simplification, building redundancy even at the cost of efficiency. The Stockholm Resilience Center makes the ecological math unavoidable. Every planetary boundary crossed shrinks the margin for error. Every one restored widens it. There is no economy on a dead planet. The pattern is real. The researchers are serious. The data is the most comprehensive ever assembled. But a pattern is not a prophecy. It is a diagnosis. And a diagnosis is only a death sentence if the patient refuses treatment. The Akkadians couldn't see the curve. The Maya couldn't model it. The Romans couldn't compute it. For the first time in 5,000 years, a civilization has the data, the tools, and the knowledge to understand the process acting on it, in real time. The machine has identified the pattern. It has marked the window. It has measured the pressure. But the next data point, the one that determines which branch we follow, hasn't been recorded yet.